17-year-old Ethan Jacobs never imagined a single car ride could change his life forever. One sunny afternoon, as he happily set out with his grandmother on a routine trip, he became the central figure in a nightmarish misunderstanding. In a matter of minutes, flashing lights and raised voices replaced laughter and family bonding. Little did Ethan know that his wrongful arrest would spark a wave of outrage far beyond his hometown, galvanizing a community and challenging the very institutions meant to keep them safe. This is the story of how a promising young man turned personal tragedy into a beacon for lasting change. Ethan Jacobs woke up on a crisp autumn morning filled with optimism. The sun peeked through his blinds, illuminating the trophies and photos lining his shelves, reminders of a life filled with hard work, academic achievement, and a loving family. Today, he was driving his grandmother to a nearby city for some early holiday shopping. This was not just any trip. Ethan, newly equipped with a learner's permit, had been given the green light to take the driver's seat for the entire journey. He hurried down to the kitchen, where the smell of scrambled eggs and sizzling bacon welcomed him. His grandmother, Helen Jacobs, 75 years young with a warm smile and a spirit of steel, was already seated at the table. Despite her short stature, she had a larger-than-life presence, brimming with stories about the old days and a fierce protectiveness over her only grandson. Ethan's mother, Cherise, handed him a plate while his father, Rodney, sipped coffee and read the local newspaper. "Don't forget," Rodney said, with a half-smile, "you've got precious cargo on board today." He glanced affectionately toward Helen, who patted Ethan's hand in encouragement. Ethan grinned. "I know, Dad. I'll drive safe." Helen's eyes sparkled with excitement. "I can't wait for our little adventure," she said. "I remember riding in wagons on these streets, so seeing my grandson drive me on modern roads, it's a joy." He felt a surge of pride. This trip would be something special, a chance to repay a fraction of the love and warmth his grandmother had always shown him. He finished breakfast, grabbed the keys, and led Helen to the family's gently used sedan. Outside, the fall sunlight illuminated a neighborhood just coming to life. Neighbors waved from their porches. Children hopped onto school buses. The tree-lined streets of Willow Grove felt comfortably familiar, a place where Ethan's roots ran deep. Sliding into the driver's seat, he turned the ignition, cherishing each second of this milestone. "You ready, Grandma?" he asked, adjusting the mirror. Helen beamed at him from the passenger seat. "I've been ready since the day you were born," she teased. "Now let's go have ourselves a day to remember." At that point, Ethan had no idea how unforgettable the day would actually become. As they pulled away, Ethan's nerves and excitement mingled. He followed the speed limit meticulously, remembering his father's advice, "Don't forget the rules. One mistake can cost you." Yet the mood in the car was light. Helen swapped stories from decades past, her own first driving experience in an old pickup truck, the time she got lost on the way to a wedding, how a policeman once helped her change a flat tire at midnight. "Not all officers are the same," she said, concluding her story, "but a good one makes you feel safe." They arrived at a rural highway that would lead them to the next county over. The landscapes changed quickly. Farmland stretched out on either side, with only the occasional barn or gas station interrupting the rolling hills. Birds soared overhead. A sense of freedom expanded in Ethan's chest as he pressed lightly on the accelerator. At a roadside diner, they stopped for a quick break. Helen insisted on treating Ethan to a slice of apple pie. "Best in the state," she promised, savoring each bite. Ethan eyed her fork, half amused, half admiring how she could enjoy the simple things so completely. Soon back on the road, a sign announced, "Welcome to Greenwood Hills, population 22,350. It was the larger town, the plan for their shopping expedition. Ethan signaled a lane change, carefully navigating the busier traffic. Helen checked her shopping list. Just a few gifts for Christmas, oh, and maybe some new yarn. Did I tell you about the quilt I'm making? Ethan laughed. Only about 100 times, Grandma, but you can tell me again. Then, in the midst of their banter, something caught Ethan's eye, the glare of blue and red lights in his rearview mirror. The siren was faint at first, but it grew louder, shrieking through the crisp afternoon air. He felt his stomach drop. Grandma, Helen glanced back, her cheerful demeanor clouded with concern. Why are they pulling us over? You weren't speeding, were you? Ethan shook his head. Pretty sure I wasn't. He checked the speedometer again. 10 miles under the limit in a residential zone, just to be safe. Confusion gnawed at him. Nevertheless, he dutifully flicked on his blinker and guided the car to the curb. Little did he know this was the start of a nightmare that would change his life. Heart pounding, Ethan powered down the window and waited. The police cruiser parked directly behind them, lights still pulsing. He glanced at his grandmother, who nodded calmly. "Remember what your parents taught you," she said, voice low but steady. "Be respectful. Answer their questions." A tall, broad-shouldered officer approached. His name tag read Officer Kincaid. His right hand rested on the holster of his sidearm, a detail that sent a jolt of fear through Ethan. "License, registration," Officer Kincaid barked, his gaze snapping between Ethan and Helen. Ethan fumbled for his learner's permit. I only have a permit, sir. I'm 17. My grandmother is supervising." He passed it over, hands trembling. Kincaid studied the permit, then flicked his eyes to Helen. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" "No," Ethan managed. His voice cracked. "Was I speeding?" The officer's jaw tightened. "Step out of the vehicle." Panic surged in Ethan's chest. Sir, may I ask why?" Kincaid's glare was as sharp as broken glass. "I said, step out of the vehicle." Now, Helen tried to interject. "Officer, please, we've done nothing wrong. My grandson—" "I need you both out, ma'am," Kincaid interrupted tersely. "Let's not make this difficult." Ethan's vision blurred with a rush of adrenaline. He could almost hear his father's warnings echoing in his mind. "Stay calm. Don't argue. Keep your hands visible." He opened the driver's door and stepped onto the curb. Helen more slowly exited the passenger side. The second officer, petite and stern-looking, appeared from the cruiser, glancing at a clipboard. Ethan's head spun. "What's happening?" Ethan's voice quivered. "Is there an issue?" Officer Kincaid locked eyes with him. "We got a call about an armed robbery suspect driving a similar vehicle. Teenage male, about your build." Helen's hand flew to her chest. "Armed robbery? That's absurd. MAAM, step aside," Kincaid ordered, turning his full attention on Ethan. Instinctively, Ethan raised his palms chest high to show he had nothing in them. The pit of dread in his stomach deepened. Helen's voice rose. "He's not armed. He's never been in trouble. We only came here to shop." Ignoring her protests, Kincaid gestured for the second officer to keep watch. Then he reached behind his back and unclipped a pair of handcuffs. "You have the right to remain silent," he began, voice mechanical and cold. "Anything you say can and will for Ethan." Time seemed to freeze. He felt the metal close around his wrists, heard Helen's cries, saw onlookers gathering with smartphones in hand. In that snap of a moment, he realized everything he'd worked for, his pristine record, his bright academic future, could be overshadowed by a single misunderstanding. His heart hammered. "Please, sir," he whispered, "I'm not who you think I am." But his words were drowned out by the roar of injustice already unfolding around him. Handcuffed and transported, Ethan found himself in the back seat of the squad car, tears burning behind his eyes. He didn't dare let them fall. Next to him, Helen had demanded to ride along, refusing to leave her grandson's side. Her fury manifested in tight lips and clenched fists. At the Greenwood Hills police station, Ethan was led through the fluorescent-lit corridors. Everything smelled like disinfectant and stale coffee. Officers cast curious glances, some sympathetically, others indifferently. The second officer took his fingerprints and snapped a mug shot. Each click of the camera shattered a piece of Ethan's self-esteem. Helen confronted anyone within earshot. "He's 17. You're humiliating an innocent child." Behind a tall counter, an older sergeant tried to placate her. "Ma'am, please calm down. We have procedures." "Your procedures are traumatizing my grandson," she retorted, voice trembling with indignation. Ethan was given a drab holding cell to await further questioning. "Grandma," he said quietly, "maybe you should go call Mom and Dad." Helen looked torn. She didn't want to leave him, but eventually nodded. "I'll be back, Ethan. Don't you lose hope." The cell door clanged shut, leaving Ethan alone. Each minute felt like an hour. Finally, an officer summoned him to a cramped interrogation room. The walls were dingy grey, and a single fluorescent bulb buzzed overhead. Officer Kincaid entered, arms crossed. He tossed a file onto the table. "You match the description: a teenage African-American male, older sedan, same jacket color. Witness saw you leave a convenience store right after it was robbed. You want to explain?" Ethan's lungs felt tight. "I wasn't near any store. We drove straight here. I have receipts from a roadside diner, plus my grandmother can confirm everything." "Why won't you check the cameras or something?" Kincaid exhaled impatiently. "We're waiting for footage, but it's not as simple as you think. Systems take time, and we have to be thorough." For a moment, Ethan glimpsed a flicker of uncertainty in the officer's eyes. Nonetheless, the tension remained thick. "What's your record like, Ethan?" Kincaid asked abruptly. "I have no record, sir," Ethan replied, swallowing his anger. "I'm an honor roll student. National Honor Society. I do volunteer tutoring. My teachers and classmates can vouch for me." Kincaid studied the teen for a long moment. Then he rose and walked out without another word, leaving Ethan alone again with the cold walls and the faint hum of electricity. An hour later, though it felt like forever, Helen returned, this time with Ethan's parents and a sharp-eyed attorney from a local civil rights group. They demanded answers, brandishing phone records and diner receipts. His parents insisted on seeing a supervisor. Kincaid reappeared, now more subdued. "We're reviewing new evidence. For the moment, your son remains in custody until we verify all details." Ethan's parents erupted in protests, but the officer's words hung heavy in the air. In that instant, Ethan realized his entire future depended on the capacity of strangers to recognize he was telling the truth. While Ethan remained in limbo, the outside world moved swiftly. Helen's first call had been to Ethan's mother, who quickly rallied her social circles. By the time day turned to evening, word spread like wildfire through Willow Grove and beyond. A promising teen, arrested under dubious circumstances. Teachers, friends, and even the local church group organized. Their pastor arrived at the station, joining Ethan's parents in confronting the department. Meanwhile, bystanders who had filmed the handcuffing posted their videos online. Within hours, social media lit up with angry comments. A crowd began to form on the sidewalk in front of the station. Handmade signs read "Free Ethan" and "Racial profiling kills dreams." Many were outraged that such an incident could happen to a teen they knew and loved, someone widely regarded as a role model in their hometown. Inside the station, Ethan's father paced the hallway, fury coursing through him. "This is madness," he said under his breath. "My son is being treated like a criminal over a random description." His mother, Cherise, tried to maintain composure, but frustration and worry etched deep lines across her face. She demanded the desk sergeant allow her to see Ethan. After much back and forth, they finally let her speak to him through the bars of his holding cell. She found him pale, eyes downcast. When Ethan heard his mother's voice, he lifted his gaze. "Mom," he began, voice thick with emotion. "They won't believe me." She reached through the bars, clasping his hands in hers. "They will. We'll make them. Your grandmother has half the county on speed dial. This entire town knows you, and they know you'd never do what they're accusing you of." It was a testament to the relationships Ethan had built. As an honors student, a peer mentor, and a volunteer coach for younger kids, he'd become a community pillar in ways he never realized. Now, the people he'd helped and the connections he'd forged rose up to protect him, to demand justice. That night, the crowd outside grew, chanting slogans calling for his release. News reporters arrived, broadcasting footage of the protest on local channels. Talk radio hosts took calls from outraged citizens demanding accountability. All the while, Ethan sat in the sterile glow of the cell, replaying the day in his mind. Just this morning, he had been excited about holiday shopping with Grandma. Now, he felt the stares and judgments of an entire police force, suspicious of him for reasons he had yet to fathom. As midnight approached, his attorney made progress. Someone in the station revealed that actual CCTV footage of the robbery suspect had arrived. The suspect, it turned out, was in his 20s, with noticeably different facial features. Yes, the suspect was African American, but beyond that, the resemblance to Ethan was tenuous at best. Whispers circulated among the officers they'd arrested the wrong kid. At midnight, the watch commander received a crucial phone call from another precinct. The real suspect had been apprehended on the other side of town, caught in the act of trying to rob another convenience store. The so-called witness description that implicated Ethan had been incomplete or exaggerated. By the early hours of morning, tension among the station's top brass was palpable. Several officers suspected they had gone too far, too fast, and in the center of it all, Ethan waited, heart pounding, life on hold. At 2:00 a.m., an exhausted desk sergeant came to unlock Ethan's holding cell. "Come with me," he said quietly. They led Ethan to the front desk, where Helen and his parents stood waiting. His mother rushed forward, arms outstretched, tears shining in her eyes. "They're letting you go," she cried, hugging him fiercely. Ethan's father placed a firm hand on his son's shoulder. "You okay, son?" Too overwhelmed to speak, Ethan nodded. He turned to see an official, the watch commander, scribbling notes on paperwork. The man finally looked up. "We apologize for the inconvenience," he said, using a tone that sounded more rehearsed than sincere. "You're free to go. The station will be issuing a formal statement about this misunderstanding." Ethan felt that word, misunderstanding, twist in his gut. It wasn't just a misunderstanding he wanted to say. It was terrifying and humiliating. But he bit his tongue, not wanting to undermine the fragile relief of finally being released. In the lobby, an officer handed Ethan back his personal belongings in a plastic baggy wallet, phone, keys to the family sedan. Each item felt heavier now, symbolizing a chunk of stolen innocence. Helen glared at the officer who returned the belongings. A child, an honor student, and you had him in cuffs for hours. The officer set his jaw but did not respond. Outside, the press cameras captured Ethan stepping into the cool night air. A roar went up from the protesters who had waited through the night. Some cheered, others demanded the police issue an apology on the spot. A small group held candles, tears in their eyes, relieved yet furious. Ethan stood there, momentarily dazed. The sudden flash of camera lights disoriented him. His attorney guided him through the crowd, where reporters thrust microphones at him, asking for a statement. Helen intervened, waving them off. "He needs rest. Step aside." They got into a family car someone had brought. The tension in Ethan's shoulders eased just a fraction when he finally closed the door, shutting out the swarm of onlookers. But the swirling mass of emotions, anger, fear, confusion, and the faintest glimmer of hope remained inside him, echoing even as the taillights receded down the street. On the drive home, Nobody spoke. There were no words that could make sense of the ordeal just yet. Ethan clutched Helen's hand. That small connection reminded him he was not alone, even in the darkest hours. Ethan barely slept. By dawn, the entire family had gathered in the living room, sipping coffee or tea, still reeling from the long night. Cherise switched on the TV, and there it was. Footage of her son's release, the chanting crowd, headlines reading "Wrongful Arrest Sparks Community Outrage." A knock at the door startled them. It was his best friend, Jordan, with a group of classmates holding homemade signs, "Welcome home, Ethan." They exchanged hugs in the driveway, the teen's eyes conveying a mix of relief and burning questions. "We knew you couldn't have done anything like that," Jordan said. "When the video of you in cuffs surfaced, it freaked us all out." Ethan thanked them, feeling both gratitude and a tingling sense of responsibility. People were looking to him for words, for explanation, but all he felt was numb and overwhelmed. His phone pinged endlessly with texts and missed calls, friends, neighbors, teachers, local officials. Social media, it seemed, wanted him to become the face of a cause. Justice for Ethan read countless posts. The real robber, after all, had been caught, and the difference in age and appearance was obvious. The fiasco at the police station began to look not just like a simple mistake, but a glaring instance of racial profiling. Helen noticed Ethan scrolling his phone, shoulders slumped. She gently took the device from him. "Let's get some fresh air," she suggested. They walked around the block. Residents paused to wave or offer a kind word. "So glad you're home safe," someone called. Another neighbor scolded the police department for gross negligence. Ethan gave polite nods, but inside, confusion churned. "I never wanted all this attention," he admitted to Helen as they strolled. "I just wanted to drive you to buy yarn and Christmas gifts." Helen squeezed his arm. "Life doesn't always give us the path we expect, but we can choose what to do with it." Those words sank deep. Ethan realized that, whether he liked it or not, his story was now bigger than him. The following week, the Greenwood Hills Police Department went into damage control mode. The newly appointed Chief Landon Browning admitted at a press conference that mistakes were made in Ethan's arrest, promising an internal investigation. "We owe it to the public," he said, "to uncover how such a gross error occurred and ensure it never happens again." Yet the apology rang hollow for many. The arresting officer, Kincaid, was noticeably absent, fueling rumors of departmental infighting. Civil rights groups converged on Greenwood Hills, pointing to Ethan's case as a textbook example of racial bias. A group of lawyers, including Ethan's attorney, drafted legal documents for a wrongful arrest suit. When reporters pressed the department on the armed robbery tip that supposedly led to Ethan's arrest, officials admitted the witness gave only the vaguest descriptors: black teen, older car, wearing a hoodie. That could describe countless innocent people. Public anger simmered, especially among communities of color who saw in Ethan's plight a chilling reflection of their own fears. Some of the local youth staged marches, chanting slogans and holding signs with his photograph. They demanded policy reforms and mandatory body cameras for every officer. Meanwhile, Ethan tried to balance an avalanche of new responsibilities with his daily life. He attended school, where classmates greeted him like a celebrity, offering support. Teachers gave him more time on assignments, worried about the emotional toll. In each hallway, he felt eyes following him, some sympathetic, some curious. He hated the feeling of being under a spotlight. At times, he slipped into the library to breathe, where piles of homework awaited. One afternoon, as he attempted to study, the librarian gently placed a hand on his shoulder. "It's okay to step back sometimes," she said. "You don't have to fix the world alone." But Ethan sensed that stepping back was no longer an option. The entire community had pinned hopes on him to push for accountability. His grandmother's words echoed in his mind, "We can choose what to do with it." He decided he had to speak out, not just for himself, but for the countless others who might face similar injustices. A local youth centre invited Ethan to speak at a town hall-style event where civic leaders, police representatives, and citizens of all ages came together for a public forum. His attorney encouraged him to attend, to share his story and call for changes. On the night of the event, the auditorium buzzed with anticipation. Folding chairs filled up quickly, and late arrivals pressed against the walls. Helen sat in the front row, wearing her favorite floral dress, eyes shining with pride. Ethan's parents stood close by, ready to jump in if things got overwhelming. When Ethan took the stage microphone, trembling in his hand, he felt a jolt of stage fright. But then he scanned the faces in the crowd, neighbors, classmates, community activists, even some officers from the Greenwood Hills PD. They were listening. He cleared his throat. "My name is Ethan Jacobs," he began. "I'm 17 years old, and a few weeks ago I was arrested for a crime I didn't commit. Actually, for a crime I knew nothing about. It happened fast lights, sirens, handcuffs. In one moment, my world flipped upside down. The room fell so silent that every breath could be heard. I'm here," he continued, "because I'm not the first, and I won't be the last young person of color wrongly targeted. It's not enough for you to say, 'We're sorry, we need change.' We need better training for officers, clearer guidelines, an end to vague descriptions that cast suspicion on innocent kids just living their lives." Muted applause swelled. He pressed on. "We need dialogue too. We need officers who actually know the neighborhoods they patrol, who talk to young people instead of fearing them. We need to question our biases. If I fit a vague description, then so do dozens of other teens. Any one of us could have been in that cell." His voice trembled, but he kept going. "I stand before you, not as a victim, but as someone who loves this community. I want us to be better. If my story can help us get there, then maybe something good can come from the worst day of my life." By the time he finished, tears were in many eyes, including Helen's. The applause thundered like a wave, carrying Ethan's courage to every corner of the auditorium. In that moment, Ethan realized that sharing his pain openly had shifted something, encouraged honest conversations, spurred real introspection. Later, as he left the stage, an older officer stopped him. "That was brave," the man said, shaking Ethan's hand. "Thank you for speaking up. We do need to change." Outside, the night sky felt clearer than it had in weeks. For the first time since his arrest, Ethan believed a better future was within reach if everyone did their part. While town halls and protests continued, Ethan's family pressed on with the lawsuit. The police department's lawyers offered a settlement to avoid a public trial, but Ethan's attorney insisted on policy reforms as part of any deal. "We don't just want money," she said firmly at negotiations. "We want systemic change." Eventually, after weeks of tense back and forth, an agreement was reached. The department would pay damages for wrongful arrest and commit to a series of reforms, including enhanced bias training and mandatory body cameras within a year. Ethan's family saw it as a partial victory. Chief Browning called a press conference to discuss the settlement. On camera, he acknowledged institutional mistakes, promising to restore community faith. Some remained skeptical, but many welcomed the attempt at genuine accountability. Ethan, for his part, tried to resume a semblance of normal life. He returned to tutoring sessions after school, joined the math team for regional competitions, and occasionally hung out with friends to watch basketball. Yet the attention lingered, as did the haunting memories. One afternoon, he found himself behind the wheel again, driving with his mother to run errands. He caught himself scanning the rearview mirror, heart pounding at the slightest glimpse of a patrol car. The trauma still had its hooks in him. Sensing his distress, Cherise placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Take a deep breath, son. You're okay. We're okay." He forced a shaky exhale. "I know. It's just Every time I see those lights, I remember that day. But time, along with therapy sessions recommended by his parents, helped lessen his nightmares and flashbacks. Gradually, he began to reclaim the simple joys of being a teen, the thrill of passing an exam with flying colors, the hilarity of a movie night with friends, and the warm satisfaction of tucking in his baby cousin at a family barbecue. In spring, as the first green shoots appeared on the willow trees, a community group invited Ethan to participate in Bridging the Gap, a program aimed at fostering dialogue between youth and law enforcement. With the blessing of the new chief, the program hosted monthly sessions at the local community center. Police officers and teenagers sat in circles, sharing personal stories and frustrations. Ethan's role was part mediator, part inspiration. Some officers opened up about the challenges of a high-stress job. Some teens voiced fear and distrust based on lived experiences or stories passed down by their parents. Ethan listened intently, guiding the conversation when needed. He encouraged both sides to empathize, to see each other's humanity rather than stereotypes. Over time, the atmosphere thawed. Jokes were exchanged. Real connections formed. Officer Kincaid never attended these sessions. He had taken a leave of absence shortly after Ethan's release, fueling rumors he was under disciplinary review. But other officers, including a few who had processed Ethan at the station, became regular faces in the circle. One of them confided to Ethan that his arrest had been a wake-up call. That small acknowledgement of wrongdoing went a long way in healing Ethan's bruised spirit. On a warm May afternoon, the group organized a neighborhood cleanup. Officers and teens picked up litter, planted flower beds, and painted over graffiti. Passers-by paused to watch the unlikely scene. Young people and police working side by side, laughing together under a bright sun. Helen watched from her porch, tears brimming. "You're a catalyst, Ethan," she told him later, over ice-cold lemonade. "From injustice, you built something good." He pressed a hand to hers. "I just didn't want anyone else to go through what I did." Summer arrived, bringing Ethan's senior year into view. College pamphlets spread across the dining room table. MIT, Howard, Stanford. He was academically qualified for all of them, but a swirl of emotions dogged him. Do I want to leave Willow Grove? Should I stay and keep working on local reform? His father encouraged him to think about the bigger picture. "Whatever path you choose," Rodney said, "you'll carry your experiences and your voice with you." One morning, an email arrived from a national youth leadership conference requesting Ethan as a keynote speaker. They'd heard about his role in bridging police-community relations. He stared at the invitation, stunned. "Me, a keynote speaker?" he murmured. "I'm just a high school kid who ended up in trouble." Helen smiled over her knitting needles. "You're more than that, Ethan. You turned adversity into a force for unity, and folks have noticed." Despite lingering doubts, he accepted the invitation. The conference, set in a major city, was a chance to share his journey on a bigger stage. He spent nights drafting his speech, recalling every step of his roller coaster year. When the conference day arrived, Ethan flew out with his parents. Standing on a polished stage, facing hundreds of young leaders from across the country, he felt a rush of nerves. But he remembered the smaller town hall event back home and how honesty had guided him. He took a deep breath. "Last fall, I was wrongfully arrested," he began. "What happened next changed my life, and maybe even changed my whole community." By the end of his talk, the room gave him a standing ovation. Teens and young adults approached him, sharing stories of their own encounters with prejudice. Some had never mustered the courage to speak up. Now they felt emboldened. A wave of gratitude washed over Ethan. Every heartbreak from that fateful day had led him here, inspiring others to stand against injustice. Indeed, he thought, from the darkest moments, new light can emerge. Returning from the conference, Ethan dove back into senior year with renewed purpose. He balanced advanced classes with continuing the Bridging the Gap sessions. On weekends, he and his grandmother sometimes revisited Greenwood Hills to catch a movie or browse shops, this time without fear. Each trip reminded him that he could reclaim ordinary joys. Soon, acceptance letters began flooding in from universities near and far. He read them with excitement, but also with a pang of sadness. Leaving meant stepping away from local reform efforts. Yet Helen, with her infinite wisdom, set his mind at ease. "You'll do great things wherever you go," she said, "and Willow Grove will still be here when you visit. Look how many people have joined your cause. It's bigger than one person now." Ethan realized she was right. The changes underway: mandatory body cameras, new training procedures, open communication forums would keep unfolding, with or without him physically present. The seeds had been planted. On the last day of school, he walked the halls with a sense of completion. He wasn't just finishing a grade, he was closing a chapter that began the day he drove away from his house, brimming with excitement, only to be dragged into the depths of a broken system. Now, he emerged stronger, more resolute. As friends signed yearbooks, praising him for his activism and resilience, Ethan felt a swell of pride and humility. When graduation arrived, the entire family filled the stands. Helen, front and center, waved a small sign that read, "Our Hero." His parents cheered as he walked across the stage. The principal announced, "Ethan Jacobs, honor graduate, community advocate, and shining example to us all." He grasped the diploma, heart thundering. Applause thundered back, echoing through the gymnasium. This was a new dawn, a step into an uncertain but hopeful future. In the final days before moving to college, Ethan visited Officer Kincaid's desk at the station, leaving a handwritten note. "I forgive you. I hope you learn from this. I wish you the best." No matter how complicated or imperfect the world remained, Ethan chose compassion over bitterness. In that choice lay the essence of his strength. Ethan's journey reminds us all of the power in turning pain into progress. One frightening incident propelled him and his entire community onto a path of reflection, reform, and unity. From the tense standoff on a quiet street to the sweeping policy changes in the police department, his courage ignited a movement that bridged divides and uplifted voices previously ignored. If this story moved you or sparked your own determination to create positive change, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Every click helps spread the message that, even in the face of injustice, hope and humanity can prevail. Join us as we continue to explore real-life stories that inspire and empower. Together, we can shine a brighter light on the human spirit, one powerful narrative at a time.